What's up, bass players? Ryan here from BassMatter, taking you through the core bass learning program. This lesson, we're going to take a look at the more popular words that musicians use, and we're going to make sure that we know what they mean by using the new Harvard Dictionary of Music. Let's go ahead and get to work. Bass players, check this out. New Harvard Dictionary of Music. $70 new, $4, abooks.com. This is a gem. This is a great tool to have. Every musician should have one as far as I'm concerned. This helps you use the right words and also communicate the right way. I'm by no means saying that anybody's doing it wrong, but I see it all the time. Develop players trying to communicate with developing players, and they're using words like dynamics and phrasing, and the newer players just really have no idea what the heck it is that they're talking about, and it's not even uncommon for these words to be taken out of context and used not necessarily wrong or inappropriately, but incompletely, okay? So I want to take the 5 big words that I see used all the time within music to help make sense of it for you newer players out there, and for the rest of us to double check and make sure that we're using the right word for the right description of music. So when we're trying to communicate an idea to somebody else, or somebody else is communicating an idea to us, we're able to interpret it correctly and serve the song the best way. The first word that I want to talk about today is dynamics. Now, you've certainly heard this before, and a lot of people think of dynamics simply as volume. Now, let's take a look at that. The definition for dynamics here: the aspect of music relating to degrees of loudness. Now, obviously, that's some sort of a reference to volume and how loud and how quiet you are playing. But it's also relating to the degrees of loudness that we actually have throughout our songs. And dynamics is very, very, very powerful for a song and can really make or break it. But bringing everything down at the right time and building it back up at the right time can really make a song so much more powerful. And especially a bass line. How about a bass line, bringing it down low and just grooving for a bit and then getting louder and louder and much more aggressive, okay? So dynamics is a big deal. It is in fact volume, but it's going to be the degrees of volume. And it's okay if dynamics throughout a song, as long as it's intentional, goes up, goes down, goes back up again, stays steady, goes down, goes back up. Whatever the direction might be, dynamics is a really big deal. Now, the next word that I want to talk about today is kind of a combination between 2 words, which is phrase and phrasing. So let's take a look at that. And I'm sure that you guys have heard that before, where you've heard somebody say, man, I really liked the phrase of that song. Or you talk about a bass player playing and you're like, wow, I really liked your phrasing on that there. I really liked how she applied some cool phrasing to that stuff there. What the heck are they talking about? Okay, a phrase. Here we go. Now, a phrase has a nice solid 1,000-word definition here, but I'm going to take just the first couple of sentences. By analogy with language, a unit of musical syntax usually forming a part of a larger, more complete unit, sometimes termed a period of music. Okay, so a phrase is a section of music, even within a song. We see them all the time today. A chorus, a bridge, a verse, a pre-chorus. Could those things be considered a phrase? You betcha. Absolutely. They could be a component that is making up a larger unit of music. Now, phrasing, let's take a look at its sister word here. The realization in performance of the phrase structure of a work, the phrase structure itself. The realization of phrase structure is largely a function of the performer's articulation. Okay, phrasing is something that the musician is going to be responsible for. There are things that I can do within a period of music that is phrasing as a bass player through the articulation of what I'm doing while I'm playing that's making something happen. Now the phrasing is basically all the things that I'm doing as a bass player to make my bass line sound a certain way. It could be my dynamics, it could be my technique, it could be my tone, which we'll talk about in a second, and more. But phrasing is basically all the stuff that I'm doing as a musician to make something sound a certain way, okay? So phrase and phrasing, we can certainly use those words a lot to communicate ideas, and we can use them to be able to understand more about what our responsibilities are and what we're actually doing to a song. The next word on the list that I want to talk about is pitch. And I hear this one referred to a lot, and a lot of people look at this and say, oh, pitch is just a note. It can be, but let's take a look at pitch more specifically here. So pitch, again, having like 4 pages of its own definition here, but pitch, this is the first couple sentences here. The perceived quality of a sound that is chiefly a function of its fundamental frequency and the number of oscillations per second. So a pitch is more specifically the frequency that something is oscillating at, okay? Now all of our instruments produce a pitch. Drums produce a pitch. It doesn't have to have a note value like a C sharp attached to it for it to be a pitch. A pitch can be absent of a note value, just like a frequency can be absent of a note value. So pitch is going to be referring towards a particular number or a frequency, and that takes us into tone, which is where we start seeing a lot more control of the things that we have. So let's take a look at the word tone first, okay? So tone, tone, tone. Where is it at here? There it is, tone. A sound of a definite pitch, the interval of a whole tone, and the third description, the character of the sound achieved in performance of an instrument. The character of the sound. That is one of the best descriptions of tone and definitions of tone I have ever found. It is the character of your sound. So if we go back and we take the pitch, okay, and we combine multiple pitches together, and the character of those pitches have a particular tone to them, we start to identify the different instruments out there. A $200 bass and a $10,000 bass can both probably still be described as a bass if you were to hear them, right? We hear it all the time, right? High-end players, lots of famous guys out there playing these $10,000 basses and a $200 beginner bass. You hear them and you can identify them as a bass. A big part of it has to do with the pitches that they have and how those combinations of pitches produce a certain tone that identifies the instrument as a bass. So tone is going to be the character of the sound, and you're going to hear me refer to tone a lot, and you probably already hear a lot of people use that word out there in the music world about tone. Tone is the character of a sound. Now tonality, a lot of people want to take the word tone and apply it towards tonality, and certainly it's a sister and it's very, very closely related. But let's take a look at tonality a little bit more in depth here. Again, tonality having its own page in the book here, but let's go ahead and take a look at just the first few seconds of tonality. In Western music, the organized relationship of tones with reference to a definite center, the tonic, and generally to a community of pitch classes called a scale, with its tonic, which is a principal tone, sometimes also synonymous with a key. Now the key goes in here to continue to talk about major and minor tonalities, the character of a body of music or of a chord or of multiple notes mixed together having a tonality that is identified as something major or minor or diminished. Now, that is going to be one of the things that we see a lot of people blending the words of, I really liked the tonality of your bass, although that certainly is something that I would know what somebody meant if they were trying to describe that to me. But unless they were playing a major chord or a minor chord or a diminished chord, then I wouldn't necessarily know what they were talking about if I didn't have those references already in my head to be able to figure out what the heck they're referring to, okay? So those words right, those 5 words right there, dynamics, phrase / phrasing, pitch, tone, and tonality, big, big words. We use them all the time in the music community, and it's super important that you know what they are because you're gonna use those words to communicate your ideas. You're gonna receive input from others using those words. And you might even hear somebody use one of those words out of context, incompletely, or completely wrong. And of course, The new Harvard Dictionary of Music, $4 or $5 online. Go grab a copy, have one around. There's a ton of info in here. It's a great book, it's a great resource, it's a great tool. These 5 words, dynamics, phrasing, phrases, pitch, tone, and tonality, a big thing for you guys to have. Now, stay tuned for the next lesson, guys, okay? Next lesson, we're going to talk about grooving a little bit and using some ghosting notes to really enhance and enrich our bass lines out there and make the most out of them, because the bass is quite a percussive instrument. So you're going to want to see that next lesson. Also, guys, don't forget to find us online, okay? Check us out on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, find us on Google+, subscribe to this YouTube channel. We're going to have a lot of great information coming out here. Like this video, tell a friend, sign up for our free newsletter. It's totally free. There's no strings attached, lots of good info. This is Ryan signing off from BassMatter.com, guys. We'll see you at the next lesson.